Welcome back. I'm Dr. Cheek and I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. First, let me say happy Juneteenth or Freedom Day. Also, happy belated Father's Day. And in honor of June being Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, today I want to focus on talking about men and mental health. And I want to start by saying men tend to have the highest rates of suicide. They also tend to have the highest rates of ADHD, schizophrenia, as well as substance abuse and substance use. And even if we take into consideration their higher rates of suicide and understanding that suicide tends to be closely associated with depression or anxiety and feelings of hopelessness, men tend to be less likely to be diagnosed with a depressive disorder or an anxiety disorder, which in itself is interesting. So what I do appreciate is that it seems like today there are a lot more studies or a lot more emphasis being placed on understanding the internalized emotion states of men, as well as understanding their desire for social connectedness. And at the same time, there is an understanding that we haven't put a lot of emphasis on understanding men's emotional experiences, as well as understanding their desire for social connection or support networks in their social settings. So, quick question. How do you respond when a man comes to you and expresses their concerns, whether it be with a problematic situation or something that they're going through, or they simply want to talk about their emotions? And when I say a man, I mean a grown man, a teenager, a young adolescent, a young boy, whatever stage of manhood this person is in at that stage. How do you respond when they come to you with those concerns or those emotions? Is your first response to be very open and supportive of their needs in that moment? Is your first response to see their disclosure or their reach out for support as emotional maturity, as the ability to be vulnerable in ways that people continue to struggle with to this day? Or do you see it as them simply complaining? Or do you see it as a sign of weakness from them and say things to them such as, suck it up, let it go, you're a man, you should be able to handle this? How do you respond? And if your response is anything outside of that very first response that I mentioned, which is being a source of support, also being able to see that as a sign of emotional maturity and being able to understand the level of vulnerability that goes into reaching out to someone in that way, if you see it in any other way besides that, then you are continuing to create a narrative of a man as this emotionless person or emotionless individual who doesn't really feel anything emotionally. And if that's the narrative we are going to continue to create, we cannot be shocked when men aren't able to tune in or hear our emotions genuinely. So with that being said, I want us to learn how to give men space to discuss their concerns and to discuss their emotions. Men themselves have a hard time opening up about their emotions for a multitude of reasons. For those that I've dealt with, for men that I've worked with, whether it be older men, younger men, and I've worked with men of all ages, I've found at least 5 common things that come up that gets in the way of them being able to reach out for treatment, to actually understand their emotions, or to be emotionally vulnerable. The 5 things that I've found, and these are just the 5 that I've found. I'm almost certain that there are more, and if you feel like you want to add them below, add some more below. Add to the conversation. So the 5 that I've found thus far is 1, they struggle with seeing their own concerns and the concerns of others as anything other than complaining. Even if they have a valid concern, even if something is truly problematic, that they may need some level of assistance walking through and coming up with a solution to actually deal with, they see that as complaining. And they struggle to validate their own concerns in that moment. Another thing that they tend to struggle with is coming to terms with that internalized societal norm that men should be able to handle anything that's thrown at them or any emotion. They should learn how to just suck it up and move on and just keep going and not really give space or talk about or deal with anything to deal with their emotions. Deal with it. Man up. All of these things that they hear or they internalize are things that they say to themselves when they are struggling. And we all know that although those statements can motivate you to do some things differently, they don't necessarily help you when you're having elevated emotional distress. A third thing that I see them struggling with is being able to acknowledge the thoughts that they're having that's driving those emotions. And this one is very challenging for men because men sometimes, for most men, they tend to have a solution-oriented way of dealing with life. And although that's helpful, when we're trying to understand our emotional experiences and we're having these thoughts that trigger these emotions, if we don't give space for those thoughts without finding solutions for them or trying to put a logical wrapping around the thought we're having, then we're not really acknowledging what's driving those emotions for us. So when we sometimes take these true thoughts that we're having and try to make them seem very logical, we don't necessarily understand or tap into that emotion. Because sometimes men attempt to utilize logic to understand their emotions. And unfortunately, emotions themselves sometimes just are not logical. They have no true logical reasoning behind them. And it's just simply how we're feeling based off the thoughts that we're having. And if we don't give space to those thoughts and acknowledge those thoughts that we're having, then we rarely have an opportunity to understand the emotions that are driven by those thoughts. So that's the third one. The fourth one is sometimes romanticizing or minimizing the negative things that their partners do or people in their lives do to them, and feeling like as a man, I should be able to take on all of those things. I should be able to carry that weight. I should be strong enough to carry all of those negative experiences. So they tend to minimize problematic behaviors and not see it as truly damaging as it has the ability to be for them physically sometimes, but also mentally and emotionally most of the time. So that's something that they tend to do as well. That gets in the way of their mental health. And lastly, what gets in the way is seeing emotions as a weakness, feeling any emotional experience as a weakness. As a society, and for most men, they are more comfortable with expressing anger than any other emotion. And I know, as far as most studies go and our understanding of testosterone, we're more likely to understand men's aggression and men's anger because we feel like it's attributed to their testosterone levels, which may or may not be the case. However, men have other emotions as well, and it's okay to feel those emotions. And sometimes they struggle to validate their own emotions because they don't believe that they should have these same emotional experiences. So they struggle to see their ability to recognize their own emotions and understand their own emotions as a strength. They see it themselves sometimes as a weakness because I have feelings and these feelings are uncomfortable and I don't know what to do with them. So I see this as a sign of weakness because I don't have a solution for these emotions. I'm solution oriented, and in this moment, I don't have a solution for what I'm feeling in this moment and how this feels in my body. So this feels uncomfortable. These are the 5 things I tend to see most men struggle with in therapy at this time. Like I said before, these are not the only things that they may struggle with, but these are things that have come up for my clients and things that we tend to have to work through, is being comfortable with that uncomfortableness that comes with emotion, not trying to always apply logic to our emotions because sometimes it doesn't have any logical backing, and also being able to give space and validate that that was a problematic experience. What I hope you take from today's video is this: men are not emotionless robots who just are simply here to protect and provide for everyone around them. They have the same emotional experience as everyone else, but they aren't always given the opportunity or taught how to process those emotions in a healthy way. And this is why they sometimes use aggression, use anger as a way to act out those emotions because it seems to be the most acceptable emotion from a man. I want to encourage men to find that support network, to be able to find that friend group, those family members that you're able to reach out to, that you're able to genuinely open up to talk about the things that you're dealing with, to talk about your emotions, to talk about your concerns, and these individuals will validate your experiences. We tend to assume that women tend to have a friend group that's filled with other women who are able to validate their emotions and validate their experiences. But as a woman, that's typically not the case. As a woman, we typically have at least 1 or 2 friends that we can confide in on that level that gives us that emotional support, that gives us that validity when we're struggling or having a hard time, and other women in that that friend group serve other purposes, whether it's just someone we hang out with because they're fun and they're good to be around. They give us the ability to just kind of let go and let loose because they're comfortable in their own skin. We have friend groups that provide us with different levels of support. And men, I encourage you to have friend groups that provide that different level of support for you as well. Maybe you have the friend group that you just go out and you play ball with, or y'all just play sports, or y'all just hang out, or y'all just go to the bar. But you also have that friend or those friends who you're able to talk to about the things that are bothering you, whether it's emotion or whether it's situations that you feel like you're struggling with. Whatever that looks like, I encourage you to find that network, to find that group, to find those people that you're able to be authentically 100% yourself with, emotions and all. But first, it starts with ourselves. So first, it starts with yourself. As a man, get comfortable with your own emotions and know that sometimes emotions don't have logic. They just don't. They just are. They are how you feel. And that feels uncomfortable. But nonetheless, the more we understand our emotional experiences, the more capable we are of being able to deal with the outside world and make sense of the outside world. So, as always, I hope you've learned something from this video today. I would implore you to kind of jot down any questions or concerns or any comments or anything you have, any thoughts you have down below. I thank you for taking the time to listen, and I'll be seeing you again very soon. Thank you.